Welcome to our telecast. Let us get started in this title called God's Prophecy, the Global Middle East Crisis Prophecy is been fulfilled. There are other things in the making, but today's title is called Global Middle East Crisis, God's Prophecy. If you remember, the grace of God spoke not only several years, but many times since 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, and in 2024, you can see what's happening and what's shaping up in the Middle East. And I have said over and over that the grace of God said that it would turn into a burning bush. Another thing that you need to keep in mind, that the grace of God also spoke concerning Golan Heights. And then the Lord has been speaking to the body of Christ and to every born-again believer that it's simply time to prepare. And you need to get ready because we're inches away from the rapture. And the first thing that the Lord showed me, He didn't speak, was the word no reversal. I have said very clear that we're headed for a global crisis, a global pandemic. Not only global pandemic, global drought, but the coming global collapse. The financial markets collapsing, and the grace of God saying what's also coming. It's a major crackdown, and you need to get ready because the Lord has been sending warnings not only to civilization but to all of humanity. And in this telecast on Catch and Go, in this title called God's Prophecy, the Global Middle East Crisis, we're going to go over some points in which I have spoken in the past. But you can see that majority of the things that God has spoken here on Catch and Go, I have said over and over that everything that we speak comes from the very breath and from the very spirit of the living God. Keep in mind that in the beginning of this telecast, the Lord said there is no reversal but the establishment of a new world order, in not only in the new world order, but the Roman Empire, in the empire of the beast. So I want to quickly go over some of the things that we have been speaking. And I want to make sure that you understand that this one was fulfilled immediately when the Lord spoke back then concerning the Black Sea. And then the Lord said that the Black Sea, in the war between Russia and Ukraine, would turn into a global event. And I said that the Lord spoke to me concerning that not only it turns into a global war, but you have heard recently in the news that North Korea has sent troops over to Russia to go into war and to fight not only the Ukrainians, but alongside the Russians. Let us keep in mind that I said that when the battle breaks out, it would turn into a global conflict. And that war, you see, is intensifying. And you're going to see not only that Iran is more than likely going to join North Korea with Russia when it comes to the battle between the Russians and Ukraine. Now, another thing that I said concerning God's prophecy in the year 2010, when I was in Singapore in Pongo, I said that the Lord gave specific instructions and told me to release that prophecy in 2010 when I was in Singapore, when the grace of God said what's going to happen and what's going to shape up in the near future was a nuclear arms race. And you have practically begun to see that all nations are not only arming themselves with nuclear weapons, but you can also see that everything is being weaponized, and we're inches away from the rapture, the global collapse, everything collapsing, the crackdown, in a moment when all of civilization needs to understand The second thing that the Lord showed me, and this time he didn't speak again. He showed me the word anticipation. We are waiting with great expectation, earnestly waiting for that blessed hope in blessed Savior. But the grace of God also have had me come on this telecast many times and say to you that the world is also anticipating for the Antichrist to come on the world stage. And that is going to happen sooner than you think so. And I have said over and over that 2024, the last 2 months of 2024, turns into a global crisis. Not only inside the U.S., but globally around the world. And the nations quickly arm themselves in getting ready for somewhere in the future for the battle of Armageddon and the Ezekiel 38 war. Now, I said also for several years that you need to understand that what's shaping up is also things down not only in the South China Sea, but especially in the Indo-Pacific. Now, I want to touch also on another point, and that is that I said a few seconds ago that the Antichrist will come on the world stage sooner than you think so. And the grace of God spoke for the first time and reminded me just now to remind you that he has reminded us over and over. When I was coming out of Sam's Club, I'm walking through the parking lot, the audible voice of God speaks to me. He tells me to look up, and the grace of God said what's coming is the mark of the beast and the Antichrist on the world stage. Now, you need to also understand that God is basically not only putting together and have already since the foundations of the heavens and earth, the grace of God is set the stage, and the Lord is preparing the nations for the final battle, the battle of Ezekiel 38 and the battle of Armageddon. Another PowerPoint which I want to talk to you about. But as I was preparing this title, God's prophecy, the global Middle East crisis fulfilled, the Lord came in a special but very peculiar way. And the Lord spoke to me concerning several things that are about to happen in the year 2025. And I'm going to do a telecast very soon concerning not only the year 2025, but what God spoke, what's shaping up. And you need to understand that I have said everything escalates. Everything not only escalates, there is an escalation that is about to take place. The world is going to experience a rude awakening. And God said that the moment of those that have been flowing in visions and dreams, the glory of God said, there comes a moment when that will cease for a second until the church is raptured, the church is removed, and then God, during the tribulation period, the glory of God brings the greatest conversion ever. He builds his entire army, not only from Revelation chapter 7 and Revelation 5. The glory of God speaks very clear. There is only one worthy of opening up the seven seals. Let us continue in this telecast. I also want to talk about that the glory of God said when we did not only part 5 of Final Hours, I would encourage you to go listen to part 5 of Final Hours, because in part 5 of Final Hours, the glory of God has basically fulfilled the mandate of everything, practically what he spoke in part 5 of Final Hours. I want to take it a step further, and I would encourage you to go listen to part 6 when it comes to Final Hours part 6. And you're going to be completely, totally blown away that things in part 6 have also been fulfilled. But also God's prophecy when it comes to sex trafficking. Remember, God began to speak that he was concerned when it came to the children and the little children. And God spoke that he was about to expose giants and celebrities. And not only giants and celebrities, but the glory of God was going to expose, and it was an exposing moment when it came to sex trafficking. God is sounding the alarm, putting everyone on guard, that he's about to make a bold statement, that he is simply not only about to flip the world upside down, a rattling world, a polarized world, and a world in full total chaos and confusion. And I have said beyond time that the Antichrist can come on the world stage when total confusion and chaos is on the earth. Let us continue. Now, I also said that in the last days, the Lord will release two different types of wind. There are the winds from the east. One type of the wind from the east is the blessings of God on the church, the Gentiles, the believers, the saints, and the nation of Israel. And the other type of wind that will blow, which is also from the east, it's a wind that brings total destruction and eliminates, and practically not only eliminates, but practically brings everything to a standstill, where the glory of God will have the final say. And the Lord opened the window and showed me a board, and he said, it's a chess game. God's final three moves before the Lord closes this whole thing in the chapter to civilization. Now, I want to go over another few points where the glory of God has been speaking also concerning where the U.S. have gone into a place that they are extremely highly passive, and they're practically have put their guards down when the grace of God has spoken to the U.S. government over and over when it comes to TikTok. The Lord has made it very clear. And also, I have said that in the 21st century, the U.S. simply dominates when it comes to the biometric chip. And you see a war intensifying when it comes to the biometric chip. I also said that it was a moment that the church will not only blossom, but the church is living in a victorious moment. And the Lord said, this is the second time that he has spoken. And he has said that he's about to cross us over the finish line. And we're going to score not only victory, because it's a moment of a victorious moment. It's a victor's crown moment where the Lord will come back, not only with his crowns and rewards, and you're going to be rewarded for standing firm, not only like standing firm like a good soldier, but the grace of God not only blessing you with the rose rewards, and you're receiving the crown of life, the crown of glory, the crown of righteousness, a crown of overcomer, a crown of gold, and a crown of life. The glory of God is making it clear in this God's prophecy, a global Middle East crisis, where we're going to see immediately, let me make this very clear, we're going to see immediately Zechariah chapter 12 verse 3, and you can begin to see that Zechariah chapter 12 verse 3, Jerusalem being turned into a trembling cup. Everything in the Dome of Rock, everything inside Jerusalem will completely go into a whole different world. And the Lord showed me a third thing. Twice he has spoken. This is the third thing that he has shown. And the Lord showed me that was coming. It's a two-state solution. And I have made that very clear, that there's going to be a two-state solution. And I'm going to do a title concerning God's prophecy, October 30, 2024. And the whole world needs to listen to that telecast, because God is going to speak and make it very clear, making a bold statement for the world to understand that there is only one God. He still reigns. In this moment, simply belongs to him. Let me continue. Another thing that God said was that believers needed to prepare a whole lot quicker, because things are going to happen quickly. Between today and when November 5th comes and go, which is in the next couple of days or 3 days from now. Today is November 2nd, 2024. A couple of days from now, we would know who is going to win. But the glory of God wants to make this very clear. No one can reverse anything. No one can change anything. And no matter who wins or who comes on top, they'll establish a new world order, one world government, and one world religion, a Sunday law, a global collapse, the digital currency. And you got to understand that any second now, the financial markets will simply collapse. And God said something so powerful. You need to write this down and circle this one. The grace of God said, for the first time, the Lord said in 2024, but I've been speaking concerning what they're going to do. But this is the first time that the glory of God spoke. And he said, and they will freeze your account. Not only your accounts will be frozen, you're not going to be able to go in there or have any access to your wealth or your bank account. And the glory of God has been saying that what's coming on the world stage is the Antichrist in the mark of the beast. But you need to circle what the Lord just said. There is a global collapse that's going to happen any day now. Not only that, the crackdown, but then they're going to freeze all of your accounts. And God is simply saying that it's not only a chess game, all the chips are in place and everything is ready for the Antichrist to make his presence felt, but not until the church is raptured. So keep in mind and make sure you circle that. Another thing that I said, the clock has simply wind down to zero, and now it's just living in the moment, living in a moment of transition, living in a moment of anticipation, living a moment where the world will see the Lord come out of the clouds, but at the same time, the Antichrist coming on the world stage. The Lord popped the window open. He said, Revelation 6, and he showed me the man on that horse, riding on that white horse from Revelation 6, verse 1. The Antichrist, I want to make this very clear, is going to come on the world stage a whole lot sooner than you think so. And earlier today, in which I'm going to speak and do a telecast concerning what God said, the Lord said, the mark of the beast is coming sooner than you expect. Now, let me continue. I have said over and over that there are world leaders that have made miscalculated steps. I talked about the battle in the Arctic. Not only I talked about God's final mobilization and the establishment, the 11th hour. Could this be where that title called 1111, the establishment, final mobilization? Could it be that prophecy, that title, that message is about to be fulfilled? And let me take it a step further. I believe, or perhaps I haven't, because this is the first time that I'm doing this telecast on Catch and Go since a couple of weeks, because we've been overseas. But now that I'm back home, I'm going to release what's going to happen the next 2 months, but especially when it comes to 2025. And you need to understand the Lord did something prophetically. He opened the umbrella. The umbrella was open and I saw rain coming down. Could it be that it's a moment where God begins to shower the final showers of his blessing on the church? God begins to do the final watering and waters of purification. In a moment where God cleanses you totally, because the rapture will happen very, very soon. Now, I also talked about that there is only one God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And I have said that God will move and swing the hearts of world leaders to go into global war and global battle, global crisis in the Middle East. The glory of God wanted me to say to you that the North Korean troops are already in Russia, and Iran have every intention to join that war between the Russians and Ukraine. It becomes a global conflict, which I said is not only fulfilled, but in the fulfillment of several other things when it comes to the Black Sea, the Arctic, the South China Sea, the Indo-Pacific, the Pacific Islands, and everything goes up in flame, including the Golan Heights. And the glory of God is showing me the Dome of Rock, and he is showing me the city of Jerusalem going in tremendous chaos and confusion from the minute that this title is released and published. I want you to keep in mind that you need to understand that God showed me the face of Pope Francis. And when the Lord showed me the face of Pope Francis, he spoke to me from Revelation chapter 16, and he said to me, the three unclean frogs. You know who they are. That is the false prophet, the Antichrist, the false prophet, and Lucifer himself, because that old ancient devil knows from Revelation chapter 12, verse 12, that he only is God, but a short time left. But Satan is looking to sift as many souls as possible, and I'm going to explain in a channel that I'm going to do with what Satan is doing at this very hour, in this very moment, and what he's been doing since the foundations of the heavens and earth, since the moment he fell from grace. Let me continue. Another thing that I have said over and over, and this you're going to see, and you've already seen to some extent, and not only this has been fulfilled, but you need to pencil in that this is going to bring a whole different escalation very soon. I talked about that nations will begin to attack not only their oil plant, there's going to be an oil embargo put on Russia. I have made that very clear. There is going to be a thing when it comes to solar energy in space, but also the glory of God smearing this oil on the church. And what's going to happen that brings about this escalation in the next several weeks or 2 weeks is that nations are going to start to attack other nations' nuclear plants. And I have made that very clear. And the glory of God spoke to me concerning the one over in Ukraine, Chernobyl nuclear plant. The glory of God is saying everything is completely going into a whole different level. And he said the release of radiation, and God said to me, biochemical warfare. And you can see that when you can go listen to part 6 of Final Hours. Another thing that I talked about, that the same way the Lord came down with a shout, the same way he went up with a shout, the same way he descends with a shout, the same way he takes the church up in a shout, where Jesus would descend from 1 Thessalonians 4:16, not only with the archangels and with a shout and with the sound of the trumpet, but that trumpet and that blast is going to happen a whole lot sooner than you think so. I begin to close with this. We are entering a time of a new time, a new era, grossly dark outside, pitch dark outside, and the establishment of a new world order. But keep in mind that the grace of God speaks very clear in his word from 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9, that his grace is sufficient for us in our weakness. The glory of God will raise up a standard, and the church will go on to not only blossom, but is a moment in which we are living, peculiar moment a moment when it's pitch dark outside, but God crosses us over and we're standing in his pavilion forever in glory, and God sparing us from the wrath that is coming. And let me make this very clear. God's judgment, and he's about to open the 7 seals. And he showed me earlier, remember, the rider on that white horse. Could it be that God is saying that any minute now, between today, November 2nd, and November 5th, going into November 6th and 7th, but between the 2nd and the 5th of November of 2024, life will never, ever again be the same on earth, because I have said what's coming is simply a crackdown. The financial markets collapsing, the unemployment going into a whole different level, and the collapse taking place. And not only things drying up, rivers and lakes, not only the rivers and lakes, but keep in mind that at some point in the near future, the entire Euphrates River has to be completely dry so that the 10 kings can cross over. I wanted to come and speak in this title called God's Prophecy, the Global Middle East Crisis Fulfilled, because in part 5 of Final Hours and in part 6 of Final Hours, the mandate in the prophecy, in the rhema words which God spoke, they have practically not only been fulfilled, but there are other things there that you're beginning to see is shaping up and will be fulfilled any moment now. I simply close with the one thing that I said for you to circle in this entire telecast, in this entire message, where the Lord spoke so very clear and so profound. And I told you to circle only this one thing. The grace of God said, the good Lord said, that they are about to freeze your bank account. And then what's going to happen? They're going to not only force you to take the mark of the beast, but you're going to have to submit to what they want. But if you are a believer, standing firm, knowing who you are as a child of God, then you know that God will always stand by his people, not only by the nation of Israel, not only by that Jewish state, and also God will stand by every born-again believer and every saint, and God will provide more than just a bowl of rice. We're entering a very critical moment on earth, because days from now, life on earth not only drastically changes, but the world will never again be the same. And there's not a single politician that can reverse, or anyone in politics, or any leader around the world that is going to change God's mind. The only thing that's going to happen, it's a one world government, a one world currency, a one world religion, and the establishment of the kingdom empire of the Roman Empire in the beast kingdom. And God showing me Revelation chapter 17, and he's showing me that woman from Revelation chapter 17. I leave it right here. May the Lord so richly bless you. Remember to click like, share, subscribe, hit on the bell to receive our latest telecast. And remember, I catch you on my next telecast of Catch and Go. God bless.